He came home that day and heard something, a sound he hadn't heard in that house for 18 months. He followed it. And what he saw on the floor left him shaking. It was 3 days before Christmas. Jake Morrison pushed open the door to his house and stood there for a second, keys still in his hand. Something felt different. The house didn't feel as cold. The air didn't feel as dead. For 18 months, this place had been a tomb, silent, empty. Just him and his grief and his 3-year-old daughter who hadn't spoken, hadn't walked, hadn't smiled since the night her mother died. He'd tried everything: doctors, therapists, specialists from New York, from Philadelphia, from everywhere. He'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and nothing worked. Jasmine just sat there, day after day, staring at nothing, silent. And Jake, he drank. Every night, he came home and poured whiskey until he couldn't feel anything anymore. But that day, December 22nd, something was different. He heard something, a sound so impossible, so unexpected, that his entire body went still. It was coming from upstairs. He dropped his briefcase. His hands started shaking. What is that? He moved toward it, slow, like he was afraid it would disappear if he moved too fast. The sound got louder. He climbed the stairs, his heart pounding, his breath caught in his throat. He pushed open the door to Jasmine's room. And what he saw? It shattered everything he thought he knew. The maid, this woman named Felicia, who'd only been there 3 weeks, was lying on the floor, and Jasmine was on top of her, giggling, actually giggling, her little hands reaching out, her legs moving, her face alive in a way he thought was gone forever. Jake couldn't breathe. He stood there, frozen, watching his daughter, his silent, broken, unreachable daughter, laughing like she used to. Before that night, before the accident, before everything died. And he realized something that broke him completely. This woman, this stranger he'd barely even looked at, this maid he'd hired and ignored, she'd done what no doctor could do, what no amount of money could buy. She'd brought his daughter back. But how? And why now? And what had he been missing all this time? But before we go any further, I need you to do something. Hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because I believe some of you are carrying something heavy today. And this story, it's a reminder that healing still happens, that hope still breaks through, even in the coldest, darkest seasons of our lives. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to where this all started. Felicia Gibson had always believed that if you worked hard enough, life would work out. That's what her grandmother told her. That's what she told herself through 3 years of physical therapy school, through double shifts at the hospital, through every late night studying, until her eyes burned. She was 29, 2 semesters away from her license, 2 semesters from opening a small clinic in Detroit, where she grew up, the kind of place where kids who couldn't afford fancy rehab could still get help. She could see it so clearly. The waiting room with toys, the parents crying tears of relief, the children taking their first steps. She was almost there. And then the phone rang. It was a Tuesday morning. She was in class, learning about pediatric motor development. Her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then kept buzzing. She stepped into the hallway. "Miss Gibson, this is Detroit General. Your mother's been brought in. You need to come now." The world tilted. By the time she got there, her mother was in the ICU. Massive stroke. Left side, paralyzed. Couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't even recognize Felicia's face when she held her hand and whispered, "Mama, I'm here. I'm right here." The doctor pulled her aside. Kind eyes, tired voice. "She'll need full-time care, assisted living, at least a year of intensive therapy, maybe longer." Felicia nodded. Asked the question she already knew the answer to. How much? The number made her sick. $200,000. And that was just the start. She had $1,900 in her bank account, a sister still in college, rent due in 12 days. She sat in that hospital hallway, hands shaking, and felt something inside her crack wide open. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd dreamed about. Gone. Just like that. She withdrew from school the next week, packed up her apartment, took 3 jobs cleaning offices at night, waiting tables during lunch, scrubbing floors at a gym in the early mornings. She sent every dollar home, kept nothing for herself, ate ramen, wore the same 2 pairs of jeans until they had holes, stopped answering calls from friends because she was too tired, too broke, too ashamed to explain how fast everything had fallen apart. 9 months passed like that. 9 months of surviving. Not living, just surviving. And then the agency called. We have a position in Boston. Live-in. Wealthy family. $4,000 a month, plus room and board. Felicia closed her eyes, did the math in her head. Her mother's care was $3,500 a month. Maya's tuition was $12,000 a semester. With $4,000 a month, she could finally breathe. She could keep her mother alive, keep her sister in school, maybe even save a little. What's the job? She asked. Maid, housekeeper. They have a young daughter, 3 years old. You'd help take care of her too. Felicia felt something twist in her chest. She'd spent 3 years learning how to heal children, and now she was going to clean someone's house. But pride doesn't pay bills. I'll take it, she said. That morning in December, she stood in her tiny room in Roxbury and packed everything she owned into one duffel bag. A few clothes, a photo of her mother before the stroke, a letter from Maya that said, "Thank you for everything. I love you." She looked at herself in the mirror, dark circles under her eyes, hands rough from scrubbing. 29 years old and starting over from nothing. She thought about her grandmother's words. Work hard and life will work out. She didn't believe that anymore. But she picked up the bag anyway. The morning was cold. Grey clouds hung low over the city. She took the red line from Roxbury, watching the city change through the window. Her neighborhood cracked sidewalks, corner stores, people hustling to make rent slowly faded. The train moved into a different world. Clean streets, coffee shops with $12 lattes, women in long coats walking small dogs. She got off at Charles Street and stood on the platform for a second, breath-forming clouds in the cold air. Beacon Hill. She'd heard about this neighborhood, old money, historic homes, the kind of place where people had summer houses and winter houses and didn't think twice about either. She walked up the hill, pulling her thin jacket tighter. Christmas lights hung from every window, wreaths on every door, families visible through glowing windows, laughing, warm, safe. She felt the distance between her world and theirs, felt it in her worn boots, in her second-hand coat, in the way her stomach had been empty since yesterday because she'd sent her last $20 home. She stopped in front of number 247. 4 stories, red brick, black shutters, a wreath on the door that probably cost more than her entire outfit. Morrison Residence. She stood there staring at that house, and for a second she almost turned around, almost walked away, because something about that place felt heavy, cold, like all the money in the world couldn't warm whatever was inside. But then she thought about her mother lying in that hospital bed, about Maya trying to study in her dorm room, worrying about tuition, about the bills piling up faster than she could count. She pressed the buzzer, waited. Nothing. She pressed it again. The speaker crackled. A woman's voice, warm, older. "Hello? Hi, I'm Felicia Gibson, from the agency. I'm here for the—" "Oh yes. Come in, dear. Come in." The door buzzed. Felicia pushed it open, and the second she stepped inside, she knew. This house wasn't just cold, it was broken. The inside of the house was colder than the street. Felicia stepped in and felt it immediately. Not temperature, cold, something deeper, like the air itself had stopped breathing. The floors were dark wood, polished so clean she could see her reflection. Expensive art on the walls, a chandelier overhead, everything perfect. And completely lifeless, an older woman appeared at the top of the stairs, silver hair, kind eyes, cream sweater and pearls. "Felicia, I'm Margaret Morrison, Jake's mother." She came down, hand extended. Her grip was warm, her eyes searching. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me." Margaret studied her for a moment, not judging, just seeing. Then she nodded. "Let me show you the house." They walked through rooms that felt like museums, a kitchen with marble counters and no dishes, a living room with furniture no one sat on, a fireplace that had never been lit. Photos on the mantel caught Felicia's eye. A beautiful woman with dark hair, a little girl laughing, a family on a beach. "That's Claire," Margaret said quietly. "Jake's wife. She died 18 months ago. Car accident." Felicia's chest tightened. They climbed to the 3rd floor. Margaret stopped at a door at the end of the hall. "This is Jasmine's room," She paused, hand on the knob. She hasn't walked since the accident, hasn't spoken much. The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong. It's all in her mind. She opened the door. The room was beautiful. Painted murals of castles and forests, shelves filled with toys still in boxes, a bed shaped like a carriage, everything a child could dream of. But in the corner, sitting on a cushion by the window, was the smallest, stillest little girl Felicia had ever seen. Jasmine, 3 years old, brown curls, pink dress, holding a stuffed elephant. She stared out the window, not moving, not blinking, like she was waiting for someone who was never coming back. Felicia's throat went tight. She stepped closer, slowly. "Hi, Jasmine," she whispered. "Nothing." Felicia knelt a few feet away. "My name is Felicia. I'm going to be here for a while." Still nothing. But then just for a second, Jasmine's eyes flickered toward her, then back to the window. It was so quick. But Felicia saw it. And in that tiny glance, she saw herself. The same look she'd worn after her father died, after her mother's stroke. The look of someone who'd lost everything. Margaret touched her shoulder. "I'll let you two get to know each other." The door closed softly. Felicia stayed kneeling, watching this silent child. Then she heard footsteps in the hall. Heavy, fast. The door swung open. A man stood there, tall, dark suit, Bluetooth in his ear. He looked at Felicia like she was furniture. "You're the new one?" "Yes, I'm Felicia. 2 weeks, 4,000 a month. You take care of Jasmine. Keep her fed, keep her safe. That's it." He didn't wait for a response. "Your room is upstairs. Don't touch my office. Don't go in my bedroom. Clear?" Felicia stood slowly, met his eyes. "Clear, Mr. Morrison." Something about her calm voice made him pause. Then he turned and left. Felicia stood there, heart racing. She looked back at Jasmine, still by the window, still silent. She didn't know if she could reach this child, didn't know if she should even try. But something inside her whispered, "Stay." The first week passed in silence so heavy it felt like drowning. Felicia's room was on the 4th floor, small, clean, a bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the street. It was more space than she'd had in months, but at night, lying there, she could feel the emptiness of the house pressing down on her. She'd wake at 6, make breakfast Jake never ate, clean rooms that were already spotless, and then she'd go to Jasmine's room. Every morning, the little girl was in the same spot, by the window, holding that elephant, staring at nothing. Felicia didn't try to force anything. She just talked. About everything, about nothing, while folding laundry. "My sister Maya, she's studying environmental science, wants to save the whales." I told her, "Girl, start with saving your GPA first." While making lunch, humming old songs her grandmother used to sing, while dusting shelves, reading picture books out loud to the empty room. Jasmine never responded, but Felicia knew she was listening. You can always tell when someone's listening, even in silence. Jake was a ghost. He left at 6 every morning, came home after 9 every night. The only way Felicia knew he was even there was the coffee cup in the sink. The sound of his office door closing upstairs. He never asked about Jasmine, never checked in, never looked Felicia in the eye. Day 5, late afternoon. Snow started falling outside. Felicia sat by the window in Jasmine's room, watching the flakes drift down, and something inside her just broke. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was being in this cold house with people who'd forgotten how to live. Maybe it was thinking about her mother, about Maya, about everything she'd lost. She started crying, quietly, just tears running down her face. She didn't mean to, didn't want to, but she couldn't stop. And then she felt it, a small hand on her knee. She looked down. Jasmine had moved. For the first time since Felicia arrived, the little girl had moved. She was pushing her stuffed elephant toward Felicia, slowly, carefully. An offering. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. "I see you." "I see you too." Felicia's breath caught. She took the elephant gently. "Thank you," she whispered. Jasmine didn't smile, didn't speak, but her eyes stayed on Felicia's face, really looking, really seeing, for the first time. That evening, Felicia was in the kitchen making soup. She was humming without realizing it, something her grandmother used to sing. She felt lighter somehow, like maybe something had shifted. The front door opened. Jake came in early, 7:30 instead of 9. He stopped in the doorway of the kitchen. Felicia was at the stove, stirring, humming softly, her hair pulled back, wearing an apron, looking comfortable. And something about that scene hit him like a fist. Claire used to hum while she cooked. His jaw tightened. "Don't get too comfortable," he said, voice cold. "You're staff, not family." Felicia turned slowly, looked at him, really looked at him. "I know exactly who I am, Mr. Morrison." Her voice was quiet, steady. "Do you?" The question hung in the air between them. Jake's face hardened. He walked past her without another word. But upstairs in his office, he sat at his desk and couldn't shake it. That question, "Do you?" Because the truth was, he didn't know anymore. He didn't know who he was without Claire, without joy, without hope. He'd become a stranger in his own life. And this woman, this maid he'd barely looked at, had seen it in 5 days. Week 2, December 18th. Boston shut down under a winter storm. Snow came down so thick you couldn't see across the street. The city went quiet. Offices closed, roads emptied. Jake had no choice but to work from home, and for the first time in 18 months, he couldn't avoid the sounds of his own house. He heard Felicia moving around downstairs, heard the kettle whistling, heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard her talking to Jasmine, always talking, like she believed the little girl could hear her. Maybe she could. Jake sat in his office, staring at his computer screen, not seeing any of it, just listening. Around noon, he heard something different. Music. He stopped typing. It was coming from Jasmine's room. Gospel music. Old songs. The kind his grandmother used to play. He stood up, walked to his door, opened it just a crack. Felicia was singing. Not performing, not trying to impress anyone, just singing, because the silence was too heavy. Her voice was warm, a little off-key, but real. "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Jake's chest tightened. He shouldn't be listening. He turned to go back to his desk, and then he heard something that stopped his heart. A giggle. Small, breathy, impossible. He froze. "No, that's not." Another giggle, louder this time. His hands started shaking. He moved toward Jasmine's room, slowly, like he was walking through a dream he was afraid to wake from. The door was cracked open. He looked inside. Felicia was lying on the floor, arms and legs spread out, pretending to be a snow angel, making exaggerated swooshing sounds. Her face completely ridiculous. And Jasmine. God. Jasmine was laughing, her little hand over her mouth, her shoulders shaking, her eyes bright and alive in a way Jake hadn't seen since before the accident. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand there and watch his daughter, his silent, broken, unreachable daughter, laughing. Tears started falling before he could stop them. He pressed his hand against the doorframe to keep from collapsing. 18 months. 18 months of silence, of doctors, of specialists, of trying everything and failing. And this woman, this stranger, this maid he'd barely spoken to, she'd done it. She'd brought his daughter back. Felicia sat up, breathing hard, grinning. "You think that was funny? Watch this." She flopped backward again, making even sillier sounds. Jasmine's laughter rang through the room like bells, like music, like life. Jake backed away before they could see him, went to his office, closed the door, and broke. He sat at his desk, head in his hands, and sobbed. For Claire, for Jasmine, for all the time he'd wasted being angry instead of present, for the sound of his daughter's laughter that he thought was gone forever. His phone was on the desk. He picked it up, called his mother. "Margaret," his voice cracked. She laughed. Jasmine laughed. "Oh, Jake." Margaret's voice was thick with tears. "Thank God." It was Felicia. She was just playing with her, and Jasmine laughed. There was a pause. "Her name is Felicia," Margaret said softly. "Not the maid. Felicia." Jake closed his eyes. "I know." He hung up, sat there in the silence of his office, and for the first time since Claire died, he felt something he thought was dead. Hope, fragile, terrifying, but real. That night, he didn't hide. He came down for dinner, sat at the table, watched Felicia feed Jasmine, talking constantly, making silly faces, watched his daughter eat more than she had in weeks. "How did you do that?" he asked quietly. Felicia looked at him. I didn't do anything. I just reminded her that joy still exists. Jake stared at his plate. I forgot that too. Felicia's voice was gentle. I know, but she needs you to remember. He looked at Jasmine, then at Felicia, and something inside him began to thaw. 3 weeks in, December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, something had shifted in the house. Jake started coming home earlier, 6:30 instead of 9. He'd ask questions now. How was her day? Did she eat? Did she smile again? He still kept his distance, still didn't know how to be a father, but he was trying. Felicia saw it. The way he'd linger in doorways, the way he'd watch them from the hallway, the way he looked at Jasmine like he was remembering something he thought he'd lost. That morning, Felicia made a decision. Her PT training had been screaming at her for days. Jasmine's muscles were strong, her body worked perfectly. She just needed to remember that moving was safe. She needed therapeutic play. Mid-morning, sunlight poured through Jasmine's window. Felicia wore yoga pants and a sweatshirt instead of her usual work clothes. She spread a thick mat on the floor. Jasmine, you want to try something fun today? The little girl looked up, curious. Felicia lay on her back, bent her knees. Come here, sweetie. Jasmine hesitated, then slowly, so slowly, scooted closer. Felicia lifted her carefully, placed her belly down on her shins, holding her hands firmly. Ready for takeoff? She started rocking gently, side to side, and something incredible happened. Jasmine's legs engaged, her core activated. Her body remembered what it was supposed to do. Her face lit up, eyes wide, mouth open. We're flying over Boston. I see the park. I see the river. Jasmine's arms spread out like wings, and she laughed. Full, bright, beautiful laughter. Felicia's heart soared. Look at you. You're flying. She rocked a little more, Jasmine giggling, her little body working, moving, alive. The door slammed open. Jake stood there, eyes wild, face white. What are you doing? His voice was a roar. Felicia froze. Jake rushed forward, grabbed Jasmine off her roughly, pulled her away. Jasmine immediately went silent, tears filling her eyes. She could have fallen. She could have been hurt. What the hell were you thinking? Felicia stood up slowly. Mr. Morrison, it's a therapeutic technique. You're not her therapist. His voice shook with rage, with terror. You're the maid. The words hit like a slap. I'm the only one actually helping her, Felicia said quietly. Get out. His voice dropped. Cold. Final. Pack your things. You're fired. Jasmine started crying, reaching for Felicia, but Jake held her tight, turning away. Felicia stood there, hands shaking, not from anger, from grief, because she'd been so close to reaching this child, and now it was over. She walked to her room, started packing her duffel bag, tears falling on the same worn clothes she'd arrived with. Downstairs, Jake sat in Jasmine's room, holding her as she sobbed, his heart pounding, his mind screaming. I almost lost her. I almost lost her again. But somewhere underneath the fear, a small voice whispered, You just did. Margaret got the call from the housekeeper 30 minutes later. She walked into the house and knew immediately. The silence was different now, not just empty, shattered. She found Jake in his office, head in his hands. What did you do? He looked up. I protected my daughter. You destroyed her only hope. Mum, she was being reckless. Claire died because a drunk driver ran a red light. Margaret's voice cut through him like glass. Jasmine is dying because you're too terrified to let her live. Jake stood. That's not fair. Fair. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. That little girl hasn't walked in 18 months, and for 3 weeks she's been smiling, laughing, engaging, and you just threw away the only person who made that happen. I can't lose her. His voice broke. I can't. Then stop pushing away everyone who tries to help you. Hold on. Margaret left him there. Found Felicia at the bus stop on Charles Street. Snow falling. Thin jacket. Duffel bag at her feet. Felicia. She looked up. Eyes red. Mrs. Morrison. I should have asked permission. No. Margaret sat beside her. You did what you were trained to do. My son is broken, and he's breaking everything good he touches. Felicia wiped her eyes. He made his choice. He made a mistake. Margaret's voice was gentle. Give him a chance to fix it. I can't keep surviving on other people's maybes. Felicia's voice cracked. I have my own family to save. Margaret pulled an envelope from her purse. 2 months' pay. And my number. When he comes to his senses, and he will please answer. She stood, touched Felicia's shoulder, and left. Back at the house, Jake went to Jasmine's room. She was curled in the corner, holding her elephant. Won't look at him. He sat beside her. I'm sorry, baby. I just wanted to keep you safe. Nothing. She was stone again, silent again, gone again. I'm scared, he whispered. When Mommy died, I thought I lost everything. But I still had you, and if I lost you too. His voice broke. I don't know how to do this without being afraid. Jasmine didn't move. Jake sat there for an hour, then 2, finally stood, went to the garage, sat in his car in the dark, Margaret's words echoing. You're too terrified to let her live. He pulled out his phone, stared at it, typed, please come back, deleted it, typed, I was wrong, deleted it. His hands shook. He thought about Jasmine's laughter, the sound he hadn't heard in 18 months, thought about how alive she'd looked, how happy. He typed, she needs you, I need you. Can we try again? His finger hovered over, send, everything in him screaming not to do this, not to hope, not to trust, because hope meant risk, and risk meant loss. But staying here in this tomb of fear and silence meant losing her anyway. He closed his eyes, pressed send, and waited. In the falling snow at the bus stop, Felicia's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, read the message, and felt something inside her crack open. Felicia stood in the snow, staring at those words. She needs you. I need you. Can we try again? The bus pulled up. Doors opened. She didn't move. The driver looked at her. You getting on or not? She thought about her mother, about Maya, about the bills waiting, thought about Jasmine, those hazel eyes, that small hand offering the elephant, the laughter that had filled that cold house for the first time in 18 months. No, she said quietly. I'm not. The bus pulled away. She turned back toward Beacon Hill. Christmas Eve morning. The house felt different when she walked in. Jake was waiting in the entryway. No Bluetooth, no phone, just him. He looked like he hadn't slept. Thank you for coming back. Felicia set down her bag. I'm not here for you, Mr. Morrison. I'm here for Jasmine. I know. His voice was quiet, raw. But, can you teach me what you know about helping her? It was the first time he'd asked for help in 2 years. Felicia studied his face, saw the exhaustion, the fear, the desperate hope. No more hiding, she said. You participate. You learn. You show up as her father, not her warden. He nodded. Okay. They went upstairs together. Jasmine was in her corner, still, silent. But when she saw Felicia, her eyes changed. Just a flicker. But it was there. Felicia knelt down. Hi, sweetie. I'm back. Jasmine's hand moved, reached out. Felicia took it, squeezed gently. Your daddy wants to learn how to play with you. Is that okay? Jasmine looked at Jake. He knelt beside Felicia, awkward, unsure. Hi, baby girl. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For the first time in weeks, Jasmine leaned forward. Into his arms, Jake held her, and broke. I'm here, he whispered into her hair. I'm here now. Over the next days, everything shifted. Felicia showed Jake the exercises, how to engage Jasmine's muscles through play, how to read her cues, how to be present without hovering. He was clumsy at first, too stiff, too careful, but he tried. Every morning, he was there, learning, participating. Christmas morning arrived quiet and soft. No big celebration, just the 3 of them. Felicia made breakfast. Jake set the table. Jasmine watched from her chair. After they ate, Felicia suggested the airplane game again. Jake's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Show me. Felicia lay down. Jake helped lift Jasmine onto her shins. Now you hold her hands, Felicia said. Let her feel you're there. Jake took his daughter's small hands in his. Ready to fly, baby? Felicia rocked gently, and Jasmine's face lit up. She looked at her father, really looked at him, and smiled. Jake's eyes filled with tears. There you are, he whispered. There's my girl. That night, after Jasmine was asleep, Jake found Felicia in the kitchen. I've been thinking about something, he said. Felicia turned. There's a place, in Colorado, Horizons Rehabilitation Center. They specialize in pediatric trauma, physical therapy combined with psychological care. He paused. They have an opening in 2 weeks. I want to take Jasmine. But, he looked at her, I want you to come with us, not as staff, as family. Felicia's breath caught. Mr. Morrison. Jake, he said quietly. My name is Jake. She looked at him, really looked. Saw a man who was finally fighting for his daughter. Okay, she whispered. I'll come. Mid-January. The private plane lifted off from Boston. Jasmine sat between them, one small hand in Jake's, one in Felicia's. She looked out the window at the clouds and whispered, Mommy's up there. Jake's throat closed. Felicia squeezed her hand gently. Yes, sweetie, she is. When they landed in Colorado, the world looked different. Clean, bright. Mountains rising like something out of a painting. Horizons Rehabilitation Center sat at the base of those mountains. All windows and light. Nothing like a hospital, more like a home. Dr. Sarah Chen met them at the entrance. Warm smile, kind eyes. She knelt to Jasmine's level. Hi, Jasmine. I hear you like elephants. Jasmine nodded. Me too. Want to meet my therapy dog? His name is Boulder. For the first time, Jasmine let go of Felicia's hand. Reached toward the golden retriever waiting nearby. The assessment took 3 days. Physical tests, psychological evaluation, family observation. Dr. Chen sat with Jake and Felicia on the 3rd day. Jasmine's body is perfect. No damage, no weakness. Her mind is protecting her by keeping her still. We need to teach her brain that it's safe to move again. She looked at both of them. 2 weeks. Intensive therapy. Physical, play-based, trauma-informed. But she'll need both of you there. Every session, every step. Jake nodded. Whatever it takes. They stayed in a lodge nearby. 3 bedrooms. Mountain views. But they spent most of their time together. Mornings at therapy. Afternoons practicing exercises. Evenings cooking dinner as a family. Jake learned how to make grilled cheese. Burned the first 3. Jasmine giggled every time. Felicia taught him the stretches, the games, how to encourage without pushing. Day 5. Jasmine stood unassisted, holding parallel bars, her legs shaking but strong. Day 7. She took 3 steps, with help, but she took them. Day 9. She spoke a full sentence. I want Daddy and Felicia to watch. They rushed to the therapy room. Watched her walk 10 steps between the bars. Jake and Felicia held each other, both crying. Jasmine beamed, proud, alive. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He found Felicia on the lodge deck, snow falling, mountains silver under moonlight. Can't sleep either? She asked. He sat beside her. I need to tell you something. His voice was quiet, raw. The night Claire died, I asked her to pick up dinner. I was on a client call, too busy to leave the office. His hands shook. If I'd just gone myself. Jake, don't. I've been so angry. At God, at myself, at everyone. Tears fell. I thought if I could control everything, I could prevent more loss. But I was just building a prison. Felicia's voice was gentle. I know what that feels like. After my mum's stroke, I felt so guilty, choosing which bills to pay, dropping out of school, watching her suffer. They sat in silence. 2 broken people learning that grief is the price of love. I'm glad you're here, Jake whispered. I don't think I could do this without you. You could, Felicia said, but you don't have to. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, something neither was ready to name. On their last day, Dr. Chen gave them a plan. Continue exercises at home, weekly therapy, trauma counseling. She's not fixed, but she's healing. On the plane home, Jasmine fell asleep between them. Jake looked at Felicia over his daughter's head. When we get back, he said quietly, I want to talk to you about something. What? The future. Felicia's heart skipped. But before she could ask, Jasmine stirred, and they landed in Boston, back to the brownstone that somehow felt different now. Warmer, lighter, like something had finally come home. But the real miracle? That was still coming. They came home in late January. But the house felt different now. Photos were back on the walls. Music played in the kitchen. Jasmine's laugh echoed through rooms that had been silent for so long. February came. Jasmine walked across the living room unassisted. March. She ran down the hallway, wobbly, Giggling. April. She asked 1,000 questions. Why is the sky blue? Where do birds sleep? Can we get a dog? Jake cut his work hours. Home by 6 every day. Learning to cook with Felicia. Learning to be a father again. Margaret visited weekly. Watched them. Smiled through tears. You're a family now, she whispered to Felicia one day. But Felicia didn't know what to say to that. Because she was still the maid, wasn't she? May arrived, warm and bright. Jake asked Felicia to sit with him one morning after Jasmine left with Margaret for the park. I've been thinking about something. He pulled out architectural plans, spread them on the table. The first floor. I want to turn it into a therapy clinic for kids who can't afford places like Horizons. Felicia's breath caught. I want you to run it. Finish your degree. We'll fund it through Claire's life insurance. She'd want it used for something that brings hope. Tears filled Felicia's eyes. Jake, you brought hope back to us. Let's give that to others. By November, the plans were approved. The foundation registered, Claire's Hope Foundation. And as Christmas approached again, Felicia realized something. A year ago, she'd stood outside this house with nothing. Broken, lost, surviving. Now she was standing inside it. Whole, found, living. December 25th. 1 year later. The brownstone glowed with lights and warmth. Jasmine ran downstairs in her pajamas. It snowed. Look. She pressed her face against the window. Jake and Felicia came down together, watched her. Healthy, happy, alive. After breakfast, after presents, Jasmine sat between them on the couch. Felicia? Her small voice was thoughtful. Yes, sweetie? Are you staying forever? Felicia looked at Jake. He nodded. She turned back to Jasmine. Yes, baby. Forever. Good. Jasmine snuggled closer. Because you're my family now. That evening, snow fell soft outside. The three of them stood at the window watching it. Jake's arm around Felicia. Jasmine in her arms. You know what I realized? Felicia whispered. Jake looked at her. A year ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything. Her voice caught. But I think maybe. I had to lose everything to find this. Jake pulled her closer. We saved each other. And in that moment, standing in the warm glow of Christmas lights, Felicia understood something she'd forgotten. That sometimes God doesn't fix what's broken. He builds something new from the pieces. That healing isn't about going back to who you were. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. That family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one you choose, or the one that chooses you. Outside, snow continued to fall over Boston. But inside that brownstone, once a tomb, now a home 3 hearts beat as one. Broken pieces made whole. Silence turned to laughter. Fear transformed into love. And a little girl who'd forgotten how to walk, she was running now, running toward a future filled with hope, just like the two people who'd found each other in the darkness and learned to walk toward the light, together.